I want you to realize that you are in default mode. According to Dan Gilbert of Harvard, who wrote Stumbling into Happiness, 46.9% of the time, that's half of the day, you're in autopilot mode. You've got two modes in the way in which your brain operates: the default mode and the direct mode. So default I call autopilot. That's like when your thoughts drift. It's when you're on autopilot. It's when you go through your day without even thinking. The direct mode is the mode where you're present, where you're in the moment, where you're controlling what you think about. You have a choice. You're either going to repeat what you're doing or you're going to evolve it. There are two modes in your brain. There's autopilot and the things that you default to, and then there is your ability to deliberately choose what you are going to think about. And when you start to realize and embrace the fact that being a deliberate thinker is a skill, and it is one that I want you to master, and it's one that I want you to practice. Doing a mindset reset, it's not an event. It's a process, because the negative and limiting beliefs that you have that are already set to your default, those are encoded in the default network in your brain. And so it's going to be a process that you need to repeat. You know you want to make changes, you got a lot you want to do in your life, but then you start thinking about those changes and you immediately start catastrophizing. You start worrying, you start thinking about all the reasons why it's not going to happen. This is so common, and the reason why it's common is because somebody in your past either trained you to think this way, or you've had so many bad things happen that you've trained yourself to assume and predict that bad things are always going to happen to you. There will be bad things that happen. There will. It's a fact of life. But if you are constantly allowing your mind to default to thinking that bad things will happen, or thinking that you're out of shape, or thinking that you're a loser, or thinking that you're not worthy, or thinking that things aren't going to turn out, it becomes your default mode of thinking. Your default mode of thinking, scientists call it the default mode network. The default mode network is a series of neurons in your brain that has automated certain things. The reason why we have a default mode network is because we need it. There's so many things that you and I have to do every single day that shouldn't require us to do a lot of thinking. The problem is thinking patterns become part of your default mode network. Your default mode is to say, I'm an imposter, I'm a loser, I'm not likable, nobody likes me, I'm not lovable. It has become part of your default mode network. And it's super important for you to realize that just like I could go from being a right-hander and teach myself how to be a left-hander, it is the exact same process for you to go from somebody who defaults to thinking negative garbage to becoming somebody who thinks directly. And just like learning to go from writing with your right hand to teaching yourself to write with your left hand, it is going to be a process, not an event. It is going to require you to switch out of the mode where you automatically grab the pen with your right hand and you direct your thoughts to deliberately grab this pen with your left hand. In the beginning, your handwriting is going to blow. You're not going to be able to read it very well. It's not going to feel familiar. It's going to feel clunky. The same thing is true with when you start to switch your thoughts from the things that you default to being very direct and deliberate, to thinking things that are positive, that are supportive, that are optimistic, that are full of possibility. This is the work of changing the patterns in your mind. There's no other way to do it. And you can do it. Just like you could teach yourself to go from defaulting from being a lefty to being direct and concentrating and teaching yourself to write with your right hand. You can do it. It's going to require you to move from default or autopilot into a direct way of thinking.